Good afternoon, brethren. I will do my best to speak slower and clearer. Right? I want to talk to you about the competency-based counseling method, the model. We're going to call it CBC because competency-based counseling is a lot the same. So let's just say CBC. CBC. While we are all called in some manner to do counseling, we are not able to fully analyze the mental health issues of a person and resolve all of the issues of their childhood. You are just not able to do that. You're not qualified. You do not have the time. Our jobs as a preacher is to prepare ourselves for the pulpit each Sunday and to preach the gospel through evangelism. That should take up most of our time. We cannot allow counseling to take up the majority of our day. I'll talk about this again tomorrow. But in America, we're very serious about our work. The churches that hire preachers, they want to see the preacher in the office doing things. Why? Because that guy is at the work and he is busy all day. Therefore, the preacher should be busy at the church building all day. It is a trap that preachers fall into. They become very busy doing counseling, taking care of church business. All these other things can keep the preacher very busy all day, all week. And by the end of the week, there has been no time for evangelism. You can fill your week with counseling sessions. You can stay busy every day dealing with church business matters. The church will allow you to do that. But if you do, then your job of preaching and evangelism will not be met like it should. What are we to do when a person needs counseling? How are we to help them with their issues? We are not trained as professional therapists and counselors. And we should be devoting our time to promoting the gospel, not counseling all day. How do we do it? I don't remember the brother earlier today said that you will speak every week with that woman and she will tell you the same thing, the same problems every time she meets. And that's true. Some people will do that because they want to talk about their problems. But as a minister of the gospel, your job is to preach the gospel and to prepare your sermons. How can we counsel and at the same time help our church members? So I want to share with you the competency-based counseling method. This method or model is a brief interactional approach to human dilemmas that focuses on people's resourcefulness rather than their deficits. I want to say that again. This model is a brief interactional approach to human dilemmas that focuses on people's resourcefulness rather than their deficits. People have a wealth of resources that they bring to any situation, most of which are neglected or forgotten when they have a problem. This model focuses on bringing forth resiliency, assets, and successful life experiences from the counselee's own background and utilizing these resources to bring about positive change in that counselee. Now, I want you to think about the story of David and Goliath from 1 Samuel 17. Goliath is the obvious issue and problem for the Israelites. Also, David is not the most likely answer to that problem for the Israelites. David is just a shepherd boy. However, using David's own life experiences, David was able to overcome the problem based on the experiences of his life. Using this model, we can help our members do the same thing that David did and slay the giants that are in their lives with one stone at a time, using their life experiences. This counseling method is intended to be brief. You do not have time as regular ministers to be spending all of your weeks doing counseling sessions. You need to be preaching the gospel, studying for your lesson, doing different things. This method is supposed to be brief. As a minister of the gospel, you don't have time for that. You have a church to build. This model helps you achieve the ability to counsel someone and help them briefly. Now, these next few steps are what's called the competency-based counseling method. And we're going to go through this slowly, and we're going to talk about this as we go along. So there are several steps when you meet with someone using this method. These are the steps that you go through. Number one, you get started. You give them greetings. You sit down. This is where you start the discussion and you discuss small things. In America, we call that small talk, right? How are you? How's your family? What's going on at the church? How's your work? Different things. How's your health? All these different things. We talk about those things. Something to get the ball rolling on the discussion. Also, you show some interest in what they're doing. Maybe they have a business of tailoring. Maybe they're doing small bites, a restaurant, or maybe they have something going on at the church, a program. Ask questions about them and what they're doing. Show some interest. And you do it using open-ended questions. You remember that from this morning? Open-ended questions. Get the discussion moving. Number two, you define the problem. Now, after you're discussing how are things going, tell me what that looks like, things like that. Then you need to define the problem. Steer the conversation to the point of why they are at the meeting. What is the issue that is occurring in their lives where they feel they need the counseling? Why are they here? What is the problem? Only a problem that is clearly defined can be clearly discussed. So you need to talk to that person to see what the issue is, asking questions, open-ended questions, discuss different things in a non-judgmental way so that that person can express why they're having a problem. And then you do, remember, active listening. You remember that from this morning?
Yes.
The person tells you this, tells you, and then you repeat the problem back to them in your own words. This is what the problem is, and that person will confirm or correct your summary. Then, number 3. This is where it gets interesting for me. Scaling. Now, when you go to a hospital in America, an emergency room, and you're having a problem with your kidney, kidney, it's killing me. It's hurting bad. The nurse is going to say, okay, on a scale from 0 to 10, 0 being no pain at all, and 10 being your arm has fallen off, okay? It's hurting so bad your arm is just gone. Where is your pain? And you'll say, it's a 5. It's a 5 or a 6. So you're giving that nurse an idea of how bad your pain really is, right? You're scaling. Now, once you have defined the problem to be discussed, you need to put a number on it. Using a scale from 0 to 10, 0 being the worst. It is the worst. The guy he's going to prison. I don't know. Make it up. The worst problem that could ever happen. And 10 being the best. There's no problem at all. Everything is great. So you talking to counseling, you help put a number on that. Okay, so you're having a problem because your husband spent the money. And how bad is that problem? Well, the problem is I have school fees to pay for my daughter. She's in nursing school, and now I have no money to do that, and blah, 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 right? There's all these problems. And he always spends the money on something. Now, I want you to be careful when you're counseling someone. I think Samuel was talking about the language of counseling, okay? I want you to listen to the word I just used. He always spends the money. Always. You see that word?
Yeah.
Be careful about those things. Because he doesn't always spend all the money. But when you're upset, you're going to say, she never appreciates me. She always hates me. She never says she loves me. She never cleans the house. She never, always, never. You hear that? It's like she cannot do anything good. When you know that is not the case. So when they use words like that, the language, be careful about you using it as well. So you defined the problem, now you're scaling the problem from 0 being worst, all the way to 10 being the best. You allow the counselee to put a number on the problem. Is the problem a 4, a 5, a 6? A 6 is bad, 7, that's terrible. That you're getting worse, but you allow the counselee to put a number on it. Okay? Let's just say the problem is a 5. After you agree on a number, the next page here, page 34, you ask the miracle question. Now, I'm not Pentecostal. I'm not suggesting God's going to do a miracle in your life. But I want you to use your imagination. This is all about imagination from the individual. And you ask this miracle question. If a miracle were to happen tonight, while you were sleeping, and tomorrow morning you would awaken to find the problem was no longer a part of your life, what would be different? What would be the first small thing that would tell you that this miracle had taken place? How would other people be able to tell that a miracle has occurred without you telling them? Now, I'm just imagining a situation where the husband has spent all the money. There's no money to pay fees for the daughter to go to nursing school. Those fees are due now. There's all these problems. There's no swallow. The husband has spent the money. You go to bed and you wake up the next morning and the problem is fixed. How would you know? What would that look like? And then you stop talking. You ask the question and then you stop talking. Allow the counselee to think about it and to answer. Well, a miracle happened, and I woke up this morning. There's money in my pocket, and my daughter has already left for the school because her fees are paid. The person is imagining a future, a possibility where things are different. The situation has been resolved. And you continue to ask open-ended questions. Okay, so your daughter is gone. You have some money in your pocket. And you ask the question, what about your husband? What is he doing? Remember, you're allowing the counselee to imagine a miracle has occurred. What's different? Oh, he got up this morning and he went into the market to sell tomatoes. He's doing something. Or he went up today and he's already gone to the farm to start planting for the coming rainy season. You're imagining this is a miracle has happened. And so you ask that, then you think about the question. You get the person to really think about the issue and what it would look like if it was resolved. Allowing that person to use their imagination. What would it look like if the problem is resolved? Now, number 5. You notice exceptions. I had a teacher in preacher school, and his name is Jimmy Allen. And I think in your library here, there are some books by Jimmy Allen. Jimmy Allen was a guy, he was about my height, but he was much skinnier, loved to play basketball. And the guy reminds me so much of Doug Wheeler. You know, remember Doug Wheeler? He always had energy. He was always doing things and going. Jimmy Allen was always go, playing basketball, teaching the gospel. When he started teaching at Harding University, he was on a 9-month contract. And so he went to the head of the university and says, "Brother, I'm only going to get paid for 9 months. What about the other 3? And he says, "Jimmy, get out and preach the gospel." So that's what Jimmy did. He started doing gospel meetings and seminars, and eventually he started doing campaigns where thousands of people were there in stadiums. He was very big. But Jimmy Allen would say, I remember him in class, he would say, "You cannot make a rule by an exception." Okay? You cannot make a rule by an exception. If you think about the thief on the cross, and Jesus said to him, "Today you will be with me in paradise." And then some people of the denominations will say, "Brother Chad, the thief on the cross was never baptized." I'll say, you cannot make a rule by an exception. If Jesus was to make an exception in that case, that is his business. Also, that is before the new covenant is fully made. And so you got to be careful about that. You cannot make a rule by an exception. Now, here in your discussions with the counselee, once you have defined the issue and allowed that person to imagine a time when the problem can be resolved through that miracle question, then you start looking at exceptions to that problem. Is there ever a time when the problem did not occur? Is there a time when you didn't have the issue? What were you doing, or what did you do during that time? Oftentimes, the person may only be looking at the problem, but if you, the counselor, can find some exceptions, you can point those out to show that the counselee is able to handle that problem. Why? Because they've done so in the past. Now, that woman comes to you, the husband has spent the money, and what is she going to do? I don't know what to do. I'm so angry and upset with the husband. He always spends the money. That's the problem. The daughter is at home because the fees aren't paid. Those are problems. But you as a counselor can say, okay, when has anything like this ever happened before? Well, last year we had some problems. Also, okay, and what happened? How did you resolve the problem last year? And she'll say, well, we sold a plot of land, or we did this, or we did that. And so you're showing her that the problem has been resolved before, and that she can do it again. Look for the exceptions. Now, number 6 is, for me, key to this entire process. Okay? Number 6 for me is key to this entire process. Everything you've been doing is building up to this number 6. Okay? Move the scale. Using the scaling method, she put a 5 on her problem. with the idea in their head, okay, you've already pointed out some times in their life when they've handled issues like this. If the problem is a 5, ask her, listen, what would it look like if the problem was worse, like a 4 or a 3? And then you're quiet and allow the woman to think. Well, she might say, well, it's a 5 now. If it was worse, wow. I guess if it was worse, it would be maybe the landlord is going to kick us out. That would be worse. Yeah, that's worse, right? And so you take her worse. Okay, take her to the worst side. Okay, I'll agree with her. That would be worse. I agree. Then, here's the key. Then you say, well, what would it look like? Your problem is at a 5. What would it look like if your problem was a 6 or a 7? Well, it's not as, you still have a problem, but the problem isn't as bad as you think. And so you allow the counselor to think about it. Okay, you have a problem, but it's not as bad. Okay? The problem at a 4 would be we have no money and now the landlord is giving us quit notice. But what would it be if like a 6 or 7? Well, maybe we have an aunt, that called and said, do you need anything? Or maybe the husband has been waiting on this job, or you allow the counselee to answer that question. What would it look like if the problem was better? One step better. Not resolving the entire issue, but one step better. You allow the counselee to think about it and to respond. What would it look like? Well, it might be this or that. That, brethren, is the key to this method. You've already helped her imagine the problem is resolved. You have shown her that she's dealt with the problem in the past. And now you're showing her a way by using the scaling method. What is one thing that can happen that will make the situation a little better? She can come up with the answer. And do you know where she's getting the answer? You don't know the answer. You don't have any idea. She already has the resolution in her mind. Just like David and Goliath, David knew he could slay Goliath because God was on his side, and David had already slain many other problems in his life. David knew he could do it. This woman can have the confidence to resolve her own problem because you are just reminding her what she's already done, that she's capable of doing it, and now you've helped her imagine the problem resolved. And all you're doing is helping her, using her own life experiences. She will answer that question. What will it look like to move from a 5 to a 6? What would be the one difference between a problem that is a 5 and a problem that is a 6? And then she gives you the answer. And then you discuss that. You allow the counselee to answer their questions from their own experiences and background. And the counselee provides their own solutions to their own problems. You're not telling them what to do, but giving them the ability to see their own solutions using the scaling method. Brethren, you do not have time to discuss the way the Father treated them when they were 6 years old. You don't have time for that. You don't have training for that. You don't have the time to deal with the husband who is all the time out doing this or that. You don't have time. You are there to preach the gospel. When you do have the chance to do some counseling, all you're doing is helping them see how to make their lives a little better tomorrow than it is today, using this method and the scaling method. And so you've allowed that person, that woman, to visualize her own solution. Number 7, the follow-up. After the meeting, follow up with that person to see if their solution worked and how things are going. Don't allow them to go back down the scale. Don't allow them to make things worse. But keep them positive and remind them of their past successes and allow them to keep moving forward. This model is, in my opinion, the best model for ministers of the gospel. This model allows for brief interactions between the minister and the counselee, which enable the counselee to provide their own solutions and to take matters into their own hands. As you are busy preaching the gospel, preparing your lessons, going door to door, doing WBS, and everything else you have to do, you do not have time to deal with all of the father issues in the lives of people. But this method allows you to say, what can you do from your own life experience to make the problem a little better in the future? I want to thank you for your time. Again, we'll be discussing a little bit more tomorrow about some different tools. But I encourage you to look at this, to think about it, and to practice this in your ministry. Thank you, and God bless you.